Peter Valley, FBAmastery.com here. It's very important to me that you know a couple things. Number one, I love bingo and stupid hats. But number two, and most importantly, everything you've been told about the buy box is a lie. And that's what we're here to talk about. I'm here to talk about the narrative you've been fed about the buy box and how it's do or die and you must, quote, win the buy box to have a successful Amazon business. It's a myth. And I'm going to be up against some very, very religious-like beliefs that people have about the buy box. So I encourage you to approach this with an open mind because I can guarantee you've never heard an argument like this before. And I'm essentially going to tell you in this video why you should completely abandon, quote, chasing the buy box. Okay, so before you murder me, I'm going to give you a couple more reasons to murder me. So here's what we're going to cover. In part one, we're going to cover what I call the cult of the Amazon buy box. It really approaches cult-like levels. Number two, the 7 things that the gurus, quote, have never told you about the Amazon buy box. Number 3, the 3 reasons that chasing the buy box is a road to ruin and you should abandon it immediately. Okay, so how many of you guys have ever lived through one of these experiences in the Amazon selling timeline where the buy box just vanishes? It's happened like 3 times, I think, that I'm aware of, where the buy box Amazon's doing some tests and the buy box just vanishes for like 16 hours. Absolute pandemonium breaks out. I remember the first time this happened, it was absolute chaos. You literally had Amazon sellers candidly having conversations in Amazon seller forums about how they're going to pull their kids out of school, about how they're going to shut their accounts down, about how they have to lay off employees. I mean, it was like absolute the sky is falling level panic just because Amazon decided to take the buy box off the product pages for like a few hours. Okay, that's what we're up against. And then every time within a few hours or a few days, guess what happens? The buy box returns, everything returns to normal, and people act like it never happened. So this is a good time to say something publicly that it's going to ruffle some feathers. You should not base your business around the Amazon buy box. Okay, so before I break down this whole argument, which is going to cause some of you to have to literally rethink your entire business model, let's get this out of the way. My name is Peter Valley. I've been selling on Amazon for over 15 years at this point. I'm a very super uncool web guy. I do the site FBAmastery.com. I somehow became the world's most published author on Amazon selling. I do things, I sell things, who cares? But what you should care about is all the free stuff you get if you head over to FBAmastery.com. I'm gonna put a link at the top of this video right now. There's also a link below. You get all the free reports, free web classes you see here. All this stuff is free, and I would encourage you to subscribe and like this video. And lastly, there's an article version of this video up at FBAmastery.com. I'm going to put the link to that below this video as well. Now, the real message of this video is that you should never base your business on something that you can't control. Okay, that is a road to psychological ruin, especially the Amazon buy box. Now, I think I can avoid 90% of the hate I'm going to get from this video if you understand one very important point. Please understand what I'm not saying here. I am not saying that the buy box does not matter. I'm not saying that having the buy box for a particular moment in time or product or whatever is worse than not having the buy box. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's irrelevant, okay? So I want to be very clear about what my point is here. So what my message is in this video is that you should not be chasing the Amazon buy box obsessively for 4 core reasons, okay? These are the 4 reasons. Number 1, the buy box is inherently a game where there is only one winner and many, many losers. And even the winner is only temporary. You only get the buy box temporarily. Number 2, the buy box is volatile. You have it, then you don't, then you have it, then you don't, and it's not even noon yet. Number 3, the buy box can be influenced, but it can never be controlled. And number 4, most of what you've been fed about the buy box is a complete lie. And I'm going to break all that down here in a second. Now, here's how I want all of us to look at the buy box going forward. This is how I look at the buy box. The buy box is quite simply a natural byproduct of good business practices. In other words, you do not craft every single action when you're listing, pricing, everything in order to, quote, win the buy box. All you do is run a good business with good metrics, good pricing practices, good everything, and the buy box is a natural byproduct of that. Now, every time I bring this up, people get really, really defensive, and I've come to understand the buy box is kind of like a cult. In other words, people's devotion to this idea that they have to build their business around the buy box and build all their strategy around chasing the buy box and, quote, winning the buy box, which is such a funny term. Like, you can't win the buy box. Like, you don't win it. I'll get into all this in a second. It's kind of like a cult. It's very, very creepy, very, very weird, okay? And so like all cults, there's a belief system that creates the cult and unifies the cult and causes the cult to act irrationally. So I'm going to break down the belief system of the buy box cult right now. You ready? Number 1, adherents to the buy box cult believe that success as an Amazon seller depends on winning the buy box. That is false. Next belief in the buy box cult: over 80% of all sales happen through the buy box. Now, this is just one of many that you hear. You hear numbers like 95%. You hear numbers like 67%. It's kind of a spoiler alert here, but I'm gonna make the case here in a second. These numbers are always made up. They're completely fictional. We don't know the real number. But the fact is that people will bandy these numbers around like, okay, if I lose the buy box, I'm gonna lose 80% of my sales. Absolute fiction. Number, I don't even know, 3, 4. You can't win the buy box. That is a myth. There is no such thing as winning the buy box. I'm going to explain this just in a second. You have the buy box, then you don't. Person in Tennessee has it for 7.5 minutes. Person in Mississippi at the exact same moment, they have it's you never actually win it. It is a complete illusion, and you're chasing ghosts. Next up, belief in the buy box cult. There is a code to winning the buy box that can be cracked. This is what you're fed by these gurus. In other words, if you just do all the right things, you do this specific dance, this like rain dance, all of a sudden you'll win the buy box. And if you don't win the buy box, it's because you didn't do the exact same steps in the exact same way and crack the code with the exact same algorithm. It's all insanity. Next up, if you don't win the buy box, you will go out of business. This is kind of what I said a second ago with the over 80% of sales happen through the buy box, or even the first one, success is at Amazon. It's all basically just multiple sides of the same sentiment, which is the buy box is mandatory to run an Amazon business. Okay, now that we understand how buy box cultists feel and what they believe, how did they get there? Who created this cult? Well, I would argue it is a collection of gurus. And so I'm going to explain to you I think it's 7 things that the gurus do not tell you about the buy box. 7 deceptions that you've been fed about the Amazon buy box. And again, I'm going to repeat this every 30 seconds because I know I'm going to get comments. I know I'm going to get hate mail. I am not saying the buy box does not matter. I'm saying everything you've been told is a lie and you should not chase it. It is a byproduct of a good business. Okay, here's what the gurus don't tell you. Number 1, that you can do everything right, and still not, quote, win the buy box. They will never tell you that. They will feed you this notion that if you don't have the buy box, it's your fault and that you didn't buy their program or you're not using their tool. And if you only gave them some money, then you have the secret code for winning the buy box. That is fiction. You can, if you go to any Amazon seller Facebook group or the Seller Central forums right now, you will find people that are absolutely panicked or defeated or are just distraught because they have done what they were fed is the exact formula for, quote, winning the buy box. They got good metrics, everything's good, and they're still not getting it. And the gurus will try to convince you that's still your fault. What my argument is, there's an element of randomness built into the buy box, but I'll get to that in a second. The next myth the gurus have fed you about the buy box, and actually they don't tell you this, it's what they don't tell you that's the myth here, that this buy box cult exists largely in order to sell you products. Now, you ever notice how many courses and tools and membership programs in one way or another are marketed with this idea that you will, quote, win the buy box if you sign up for them? There's usually money that's changing hands here. There's a whole industry around, quote, winning the buy box. It's like this tool will tell you, we'll win you the buy box in this course and this formula. It's like there's so much marketing around if you just did my formula, you will, quote, win the buy box. Now, listen, I am highly incentivized. I run a repricing tool. I am highly incentivized here to lie about if you just sign up for my tool, I will help you win the buy box because every other repricing tool does that. I don't do that because I just know I know it's fake. So next time you have someone telling you that if you just do this certain rain dance that you win the buy box, ask yourself, what are they trying to sell me? Next thing the gurus don't tell you, all the statistics around the percentage of sales that pass through the buy box are completely made up. Do you think Amazon's going to release that number? Of course not. So then where do you think these numbers come from? 80% of all sales happen to the buy box, 90%. 72.5%. Where do you think these numbers come from? Why do they never match up? First of all, they're actual fiction. The most you could possibly do is estimate. But again, they're often touted not as estimates. And even if they are estimates, where does the data come from? That's what I want to know before I'm trusting a statistic. Where does the data come from? They will never tell you. Next up, yes, Amazon does have a formula for how they grant the buy box. There is some randomness built in, as I'll explain, but it changes often, capriciously, and without notice. In other words, that formula that Amazon uses to the algorithm, whatever you want to call it, that grants people buy box status is constantly changing. So you structure your whole business around this one strategy. And guess what? Amazon forces you to jump to the next foot and then jump back again. It's too volatile and it's a game that nobody ever wins. Next thing the gurus don't tell you is that nobody actually knows what Amazon's formula is. Again, do you think Amazon's going to reveal this? Of course not. So how do all these people claim they know exactly how to win the buy box? Now, the metrics and behaviors that will cause you to, quote, win the buy box more often than other sellers, that's a real thing. That formula does exist, but they're all very obvious things. And as I said earlier, they're all things, all these metrics are things that are otherwise known as just running a good business. These aren't anything, none of this is special. None of this is sorcery. None of this is magic. None of this is secretive. It's all just really basic stuff. And I'll give you that list here in a second about what contributes to winning the buy box. But again, it's not that there is a specific formula. It's just a series of good business practices where the byproduct is the buy box. Next thing the gurus don't tell you about the buy box, and I'm not saying they're hiding this. I don't think most people know this. But all algorithms, I read a book about algorithms years ago, and it taught me this. All algorithms have an element of randomness built into it. They have to. It is a necessary part of most algorithms, because if an algorithm did not, or at least public-facing algorithms, because if the algorithm did not have randomness built into it and it could be cracked, then once people cracked it, they'd just be gaming the system. So there is an element of randomness built in, which explains why. How many times have you heard this? It happens all, or seen this. It happens all the time. You list a product for sale. You don't have the buy box. So you click over and look who does have the buy box. It's someone that has worse feedback than you. It's someone who has their product is priced higher than yours. You're looking at this and you're like, why does this person have the buy box? This makes no sense. And it doesn't have to make sense. That is randomness at work. Probably. It may not be. There could be other metrics that factor into this. But the point is, we have to assume there's an element of randomness built in. Otherwise, the system could be gamed, and Amazon cannot allow that. Next thing the gurus don't tell you about the buy box. This is a huge one, you guys. This blows some minds. And I think most people know this, but a lot of people don't. The buy box literally changes based on geography. In other words, you can, quote, have the buy box to sellers in southern Mississippi, and then someone in northeastern Tennessee is seeing a completely different seller in that buy box. And so multiple, we don't really know how many. It could be hundreds of sellers can simultaneously, quote, have the buy box. They're just showing in different geographies. So how can you win the buy box if it's impossible to have it everywhere? It's completely fictional. So you've got 100 sellers around the country that for 7.5 hours think they've, quote, won the buy box. Meanwhile, their offer's not being shown to 80% of the country or 99%, or we don't even know the extent of this. So yes, the buy box literally is different from geography to geography. Kind of insane. But it raises the question, how are you building an entire business around, quote, winning the buy box when you're only winning it in one small geographical area? Amazon's optimizing everything for what offer is going to get to the customer that's looking at that item as the quickest. Most of the time, that's not you. Now, if you've gone through all this and you still think that you must live and die by the buy box, and you're going to basically just surrender to the cult, I got to let you know what life's going to be like for you, or what's going to continue to be like for you going forward. First of all, you're going to suffer massive emotional distress. Anytime you see another seller in the buy box who's, quote, less worthy than you, you're going to get stressed out, right? I've dealt with this. Constant confusion about why someone else has a buy box and you don't. That's not fun. And then this feeling of doing everything right, jumping through all the right hoops, doing all the right rain dances, and you still don't have the buy box. And I'm sorry, but it gets worse. You're going to be subjected to being caught in this endless loop of chasing your tail just to, quote, win the buy box, as though it's this prize that you can get your hands on, which, again, I said a million times, it's like chasing ghosts. It's an illusion. You're going to be at the whims of Amazon's secret formula for, quote, winning the buy box, and they're never going to share it with you. So you're just going to, everything's going to be shrouded in mystery, and you're just basically shooting darts blind. Your entire business is going to hinge upon something that you have a small ability to influence, but no ability to control. Now, we're not done yet, because I'm going to tell you the formula, or what actual factors contribute to the buy box. But what's a positive takeaway right here at this point in the video? It would basically be this. And this is how I would encourage you to look at the buy box. This is how I look at the buy box. It is a very cool, awesome bonus thing when Amazon does give it to us for a certain period of time in a certain geography, that will give to us if we practice good seller habits, but we should never expect it and we should never rely on it. That's it. Okay, so who actually does get the buy box? There's got to be some formula, right? Yes, and it's all pretty obvious stuff, right? It's all, again, Amazon does not share this with us, but most of this is pretty obvious. So it's going to be whether you're an FBA seller or not has a huge impact. How long you've been an FBA seller, the condition of the item you have for sale as compared to competing offers, the price of the item, the quantity you have for sale, your refund rate, your account standing, all those factors that play into that, your account health. Sales volume is another one. There's probably a million more. And a lot of you might be thinking, hold on, Peter Valley, I was told by reliable guru sources that there was a way that you could, quote, game the buy box. There is a way to trick Amazon and do the rain dance, and you get the buy box by tricking Amazon. You can't trick it into submission. And even if you could, here's the thing, even if you could, I'm assuming most of the people watching this are smaller sellers. Even if you could game it, don't you think that there are a bazillion mega sellers that are bigger than you that could write software that's much more powerful than anything you can do manually that would game the buy box 1,000 times better than you ever could? Of course. Which is, again, an argument for why there has to be some randomness built in. Otherwise, it would be too easy to game, and the powerful sellers would just clean up. So yes, you can increase the odds, but it's not in your control. Remember, this whole conversation about the buy box, about it being in your control, it's not control. It is the illusion of control. So I'm going to make a couple of metaphors here, just so this really sinks in. I want you to take this with you. And I kind of referenced this a couple times already, but basically basing your business around the Amazon buy box is kind of like basing your business around the weather. You can do just because you do a rain dance doesn't mean it's going to rain. Okay? And then sometimes you do a rain dance and it does rain that 1 out of 10 times, and you think it's because you did the rain dance, when actually it's completely unrelated to the rain dance. Are you following me here? So another metaphor I like to use when talking about the buy box is it's kind of like a prom date. So the buy box is that prom date that we all want, but it only goes to one, quote, lucky winner, and only one lucky winner at a time. It doesn't mean you just don't go to prom, right? It just means you work with the options you have. You can make yourself, all you can really do is make yourself as attractive as you can, but ultimately the decision is not yours to make. She might not go with you. The buy box might not decide to go to prom with you or go to prom with you for 6 hours in southwestern Mississippi or whatever. You just do your job as an Amazon seller and hope for the best. And if you're still in the cult, I got to tell you, it gets a lot worse for you. Let's say you do everything right. Okay, you think you got the formula down. Impeccable feedback score, everything right. Guess what? Amazon still is not rolling out the red carpet for you because they rotate through eligible offers. So even if you're in southwestern Tennessee, I keep referencing, and you got the buy box, guess what? They're just going to rotate through. You don't win it. You don't own it. You don't have your hands on it. You didn't lock it in. Amazon just decided to give it to you very temporarily, right? Because they're always rotating through buy box offers. So even when you win, you don't really win. So let's recap the 3 reasons why you should never build your business around the Amazon buy box. Number 1, it's a zero-sum game. There's only one winner and one winner at a time. Only one person wins. Everybody else loses. Welcome to the worst odds in the universe. Okay, number 2, you are basing your business on something extremely volatile. You have the buy box, then you don't. So you've basically ridden an emotional roller coaster before you've even had breakfast. Completely bonkers. Number 3 reason you should ignore the buy box, you are basing your business on things you cannot control. Amazon can take your buy box eligibility away at any time with no explanation. Amazon doesn't even owe us the existence of a buy box. They've taken it away multiple times, as I said at the beginning of this video. It is a castle of sand. Okay, so you guys, you now have a 3-part mission. Now, we've covered a lot of ground here. Are you ready? Mission number 1, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit the link below. Mission number 2, get all the free stuff you see here, fbamastery.com, link below this video and at the end of this video. Mission number 3, take what you learned in this video and translate it into action that will improve your Amazon business. Thank you guys so much. This is Peter Valley signing off, and I will see you in the next video.